How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 8 of What If Deku Had White Flames. And before I start this What If off, I'd like to tell you all that I believe What If Deku Had a Drawing Quirk is going to be coming out tomorrow, as it's at like 50 or 60% of the poll vote right now, and usually no other times can something come back from something like that on a poll that I have put up. So expect What If Deku Had a Drawing Quirk to come out tomorrow. And also, please put your what if suggestions down in the comments section below. And now, let's begin. Do you think the Bakugo kidnapping has anything to do with the Izuku kidnapping? Well, you gotta remember, All Might, Izuku could be dead too. Although that's not what we want, there is a strong possibility that has happened already, and we just couldn't find the body. However, I do believe if he was kidnapped, him and Bakugo might possibly be in the exact same building. Whether they're in the Nomu warehouse, where Momo has supplied us the location, or another separate location, we should be able to find it with some strategic planning. So hopefully you can find Izuku and All Might quite easily if we can end up matching up certain points to where there could possibly be. We cut over to a warehouse in the middle of nowhere as we see both Izuku's mom, Rei, and Todoroki bringing in another person, this being Bakugo, as one of them would be carrying a chair while one of them would be carrying Bakugo, as they would set the chair down, nailing it to the ground before putting Bakugo in it, as they would then leave, as Izuku would look over to Bakugo and would ask them how the hell did he get captured, as Bakugo would start to explain how they were at a place and it's good to know that Izuku is still alive, as Izuku would agree, and he thinks it's crazy that he's even sane still, because all they've asked him is if he will join them, and he's gotten around once per day he would have to be forced to run on the maximum speed on a treadmill for an hour, which was about the only exercise he had gotten, besides also having to do pull-ups for an hour just to keep his arms and legs in good health, while the rest of his body was left to deteriorate. So Izuku would be talking to Bakugo, as they would then enter, as Izuku would immediately go quiet, as they would then start to ask questions if they would like to join them. However, Izuku would say no, as they would then punch him. Bakugo would also say no, as they would then punch him, as this would go on for around a week, as All Might and the rest of the heroes had finally pinpointed a location, as they actually had another location too, which they believed to be was the villain hideout. So they were now going to be attacking two places. All Might scheduled to go to the Nomu warehouse so that he could deal with all of the Nomus, while the other heroes would be forced to go to what they believe was the villain hideout. And it wasn't quite far from there, it was only about a mile, so All Might could jump that entire length if the Nomu warehouse just turned out to be nothing special. So All Might would end up going and planning all of this, as a week would pass from this. They had planned it all the day Bakugo had gotten captured. That's how much they wanted this to happen, and they set the day a week from then, as they would then go in, as they would see all of these buildings. All Might would go in with only two other heroes, as he would look around to see that there was a bunch of other people there, or not people, but Nomus inside of the warehouse, as he would smash open there, as Nomus would just be standing still, as All Might would go in and very easily just take them out, so that they had no pain. Remember, they don't know what these Nomus are. They don't know if they feel pain or not. So All Might would go in, taking all of these Nomus out very, very easily, before coming upon two doors, as he would open the doors up to see 4 people in a room, 2 strapped down in a chair, while 2 others, one a tall woman, and another being Todoroki, as All Might would jump in, rushing and punching the tall woman before grabbing Todoroki, and would then smash both of the chairs, as Izuku and All Might, or not Izuku and Bakugo would then get out of the chairs as they would start to stretch, mostly Izuku saying that feels quite good, as he was finally able to stand for a while instead of just having to run the entire time. So Izuku would then get up as he would look over to where his mother was laying, as he would crouch down asking her if she was alright before punching her across the face, as he needed a good punch to her just to prove that he was still as strong as he was, and that her torture that he did was nothing to him, as All Might would then strap Todoroki into handcuffs, as Bray would then stand up, as she would glare at All Might before saying, "You and my father battled for years. Well, mostly your quirk, that is, one for all. However, this is gonna be quite easy. I'll simply just take you out, and then I'll take Izuku. You can have that brat Todoroki. I could really care less about him." Ray would get up and would run towards All Might before going for a punch, causing All Might to release Todoroki, as while doing this, Ray would use her fist to smash the quirk-canceling handcuffs that were on Todoroki, as Todoroki would dive towards Izuku and would start to fight him. However, this wouldn't really go anywhere, as Izuku had already beaten him once, as Izuku would go in for a punch, as Todoroki would then jump back, punching Izuku across the face. However, during this, Izuku just saw all of these punches as extra training. This was just building up his pain tolerance even more. So this simple punch that Todoroki had just given Izuku felt like nothing. It did not hurt at all to Izuku. So Izuku would jump back and would punch Todoroki across the cheek and would then uppercut Todoroki, as Izuku, grabbing Todoroki's head, would smash it down into the floor, as Bakugo would look on, just completely confused on what he should do, as Izuku would toss Todoroki up in the air, as Bakugo would then jump in and would create an explosion in his hand, smashing it into the chest of Todoroki before slamming him back into the ground, as a loud crunch would happen as Todoroki's back had completely shattered. His spine had just completely shattered, and so he was just left there on the ground, as Izuku would pick up his limp body before dropping it down, as Izuku would knee him right into the stomach, as he would go sliding across the floor, as he would be completely knocked out, as Izuku would look over to see his mother fighting with All Might, as it looked like she was struggling. As she was doing this, she would look over to Todoroki before jumping over to him, putting her hand on his head, and he would then wake up instantly and would start to scream in agony, holding his head, as she would then jump back smiling, but then would have All Might's fist go right through her stomach. As he would pull his fist out, it would instantly regenerate, as she would then jump towards All Might, punching him across the face before slamming him down, as he would then do this again. However, All Might would then counterattack, as she would end up sliding down, as she was now seriously injured, as Todoroki would finally stop screaming in pain, as he would jump towards All Might, punching him across the face, knocking him out unconscious in just one punch, as Ray would then end up being knocked out once more, as Izuku would look over towards Bakugo and would tell him, "This is where it all begins. If we can fight him here and beat him, we're gonna become the two top heroes." I know exactly what my mother did. She just transferred most of her quirks into him. So now we have to deal with this. As Bakugo's eyes would widen in shock before getting punched by Todoroki, as Izuku would jump towards Todoroki, now in his primal form, as he would go for a slash at Todoroki, who had already dodged moments before. As Izuku would be shocked, Todoroki could never dodge or keep up with him in speed, however he could now, as Bakugo would stand up, launching himself towards him, going for an explosion. However, Bakugo's arm would be grabbed by Izuku as if twisting him and throwing him towards the ground. However, this wouldn't be the case, as Bakugo would end up going flying over the back of Todoroki, who was preoccupied with looking at Izuku and dodging another Izuku attack. However, he wasn't paying attention, as Bakugo would end up sending a huge powered explosion right at Todoroki's back, as he would then jump forward, sliding down, as the entirety of one of his arms was missing. However, it would then instantly just regrow, as the fibers of muscle would end up coming and attaching themselves back and just regrowing the bone and arms of his arm. As he would jump back, as Izuku told Bakugo the only way to possibly defeat Todoroki was by killing Todoroki off by just destroying his brain. As Bakugo would realize this, as both of them would start to power up an attack, as Izuku would be doing this while keeping Todoroki back with a massive firewall, which surely would have just disintegrated him if he went through it. However, this wasn't the case. It was merely a diversion, or just something to distract Todoroki with, as Todoroki had seen the powers of Izuku's fire, and didn't want to test the limits of his regeneration quirk just yet. So when the firewall would end up closing, Izuku and Bakugo's attacks would be fully powered up, as they would launch them towards Todoroki, as it would then hit his top part of his head, neck area, as it would completely destroy his neck and head, as Izuku would see his body fall to the ground, as his head and brain were no more, as Izuku would then place quirk-canceling handcuffs on to Rei Todoroki that he had gotten from All Might, who had handed them to him just quite before he had been knocked out, as he would look over to All Might, who has been unconscious, as he would ask Bakugo to grab All Might, as he would pick up his mother before bringing them out to see a crowd of police cars, as they would then drop them off, as Izuku would explain the whole story, as the entire fight was captured live on the news, and it even had audio to it, and so weeks would end up passing from this incident. Izuku would be just praised as a hero along with Bakugo, and both of them would be given their hero or their quirk licenses on the spot because of the intellect and just the pure knowledge they had about their quirks and how to defeat a villain, especially one as powerful as Rei or Todoroki. They saw how these kids, they definitely were going to pass the quirk exam, and they didn't want to have any unfair advantages that they would have against the other kids there. So they instantly gave them their quirk licenses, and eventually both of them would end up making it into the hero world, passing through and graduating UA High School before Izuku would become the number 1 hero, as he would also end up becoming, or Bakugo would end up becoming the number 2 hero. And All Might, seeing how powerful Izuku was, would end up giving Izuku One for All, as One for All would end up merging with the All for One inside of Izuku, creating an All for All quirk, which allowed Izuku to pretty much just, he could copy quirks and keep them forever, while also being able to give them out, as that is what the mutation had done with the One for All and All for One quirks. And that's where I'm going to leave this What If off, everyone. I hope you all did enjoy the final part of What If Deku had white flames. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.